Dan Mitchell, welcome back.
Hey Dave, how's everything going? Last time I saw you was last night.
Yeah, now I'm much more sunburnt than I was the night before. I was just in the middle of watching a wonderful 30-minute YouTube video of an old timer showing you 16 tips and tricks for cruising the Chesapeake Bay. Very, very fascinating already. Already very interesting. We have a lot to look forward to, a lot going on, a lot coming up.
Well, you've stumbled upon an old video I like to watch.
Oh, you've seen that old timer sitting on the dock?
Yeah, he's drinking a beer.
He's drinking something. Yeah, it must be like an IPA.
Yeah, he's having a good time. He's telling you everything he's learned for his 30 years on the bay.
Do you remember his first rule?
No.
Don't drink and drive. And he meant boat.
That's a dumbass rule.
It was a little bit painful for me to hear, as we're currently imbibing, but
yeah, he was good. I mean, let's review him. I think everybody should know the 20 things to look out for if you're sailing the Chesapeake Bay. Do you want me to pull it up, or do you want to pull it up?
Well, he doesn't have it written down on a list, does he? It's just kind of him talking, kind of free form. But I guess we should let people know why we're trying to discuss this. We leave next week. It's finally happening. We leave next week from Baltimore. Me, you, Scotty, on a vessel, on a seaworthy vessel, but our first big sail, our first time leaving with a destination hundreds and hundreds of miles away, probably almost a 1 week long trip. And we've never had to deal with tides before. I mean, we've dealt with tides, of course. We've never had to consider them. We've never had to plan for them. We've never checked weather forecasts to see if it was okay to go out. We've always just been it's an overnight sail. We just kind of went with it. But this time we're going to be forced to learn a ton about tides, timing, watching weather, finding potential escapes. A lot of talk about how choppy it gets. Where is it the Susquehanna and two other rivers all come together in the Chesapeake? Pretty close.
Susquehanna being the main benefactor. Susquehanna being the main artery that flows into the Chesapeake, which I don't know a whole bunch about, but it is the oldest river in the world. Fuck you to everybody thinks it's the Nile. Mm-hmm. Denial is an old river, but there's nothing like that Susquehanna River, which is a wide woman. Scotty says that if you look at, it's like the vagina, it's a vassal, like the vagina of a woman, and it seems open like legs. It opens up to the Chesapeake Bay, and it had an incredible ecosystem before they built a giant dam about 40 miles upriver. So of course they destroyed it, but it still is wonderful. And that's one of the main arteries that flows into the Chesapeake. And the Chesapeake is the largest estuary in the United States.
I hope that my background of diamonds and stuff isn't too distracting. This is my closet where I change. I'm forced to be in my closet here for this episode because
you threw a bed in your closet?
Of course. That's where I try on my footwears and where you just kind of get dolled up and relax. Do you think we should start this episode here and discuss the first steps? What's the first stuff? What's the first steps we're going to take when we meet up on that boat next Thursday morning? What are we going to be checking out? What are we going to be up to?
It's hard for us to talk about those first steps until we listen to the 16 things to know about cruising the Chesapeake Bay.
Well, this is a 30-minute long video, so maybe just go to
Well, I've already skipped quite a bit. Now look at that bay. That is quite beautiful.
I can't hear it, as you may imagine.
Oh boy, did we already fuck this up?
No, a millionaire listeners can be patient for 10 seconds.
God, I hate that shit. Ought to always be checked.
Hey, about 16 points that I've kind of learned and I find helpful to keep in mind. I'd like to share them with you today. Now, first thing is, don't drink and drive, please.
Let's stop there for a second. Don't drink and drive. Ben, we can't possibly go out onto the open fucking water without some captain in our hand or some red label in our hand. Are you planning on being sober during this trip?
No, but I was thinking about approaching it very differently than how I approach my day-to-day, because I'm going to be so entertained and it's so physically demanding and mentally demanding. I mean, we're going to be running 5 cameras, at least 2 microphones. There's so much work to be done. I can't let the opportunity go. And if I even have one drink, that's going to be the reason I don't take the drone out and get like the sunset view. I can't risk losing anything.
Wow. And I don't want to give you a hard time about that, because I think it's honest and I think you're doing the right thing. It's easy to have a beverage and get lazy about things, especially future things.
Oh, yeah. No,
okay.
At least for me, I have one drink. I say, I don't have to set up that. I was going to set up that tripod camera to just kind of do like a time lapse of the boat cruising down towards this, towards the rising sun. I'm not going to do that because I'm hungover. I just know. I think that if we approach it strategically, at least for me, like if it was like, hey, tonight we've gone, 100 miles today. It's midnight. Let's just anchor here. And let's pour some drinks and just enjoy the night, like have a whole different experience,
Right.
That's
and
one
you're
thing.
saying if we anchor, we can go ahead and indulge, but you're saying as long as we're on the move, we have too much to do. I agree, dude. We can't fuck around. Let's see what this guy's next tip is.
Time of year to go cruising? Well, really, whenever you can. Now on the bay, the summer gets really hot and muggy. To me, I like the fall cruising, the fall foliage, and I like early spring.
Okay. We kind of fucked that up because we are going after the early spring and we're going before the fall, but we did meet his first criterion.
Whenever we can.
Whenever we can.
See, but the next thing he says is he even includes June in that because it can get so hot that it can be very stagnant. You can be kind of stuck out on the water with no breeze. We've been there a bunch of times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we're used to that.
Yeah.
Deep areas. Study your charts now.
No.
Yeah, I agree.
No. I don't think it's necessary to study the charts. We're going to have 3 GPSs, 3 satellite we're going to have Navonics on 2 devices, one inside on my big iPad Pro. We're going to have one outside. Now, if he means study your charts and he's including your electronic charts, then I'm cool with that. Okay. Then I'm cool with that.
He goes on here to elaborate. Electronic charts are more reliable these days.
Oh, okay. That's cool then, because I've done that a million times.
Into these areas, your chart may show one thing, or even your electronic chart may show something, and the buoy might not be where it is on the chart.
Buoys move. The electronic chart is more up to date. Next.
You're going to know where the shallow areas are, or at least have a good idea of where they are. They're well marked on the charts and on the electronic charts. So keep an eye out for that. Well, when we talk about the shallow areas on the bay, there are numerous ones, and they vary with the tide and the winds. So let's say an area shows a mean low water of 6 feet or 7 feet. It might only be 5 feet if the wind has been blowing in the right direction.
Ben, this is really interesting. I heard from Matt over at the Ocean Research Project, and he was talking about how the Chesapeake is unique in that the wind really affects the tide. Now, this guy, I forget what his name is, Vagabond Epicurean. He's also mentioning that the wind has a lot to do. Matt was explaining that if the wind's blowing to the east, for whatever reason, the east at high tide could have it could add up to almost 2 more feet of water based on how the wind direction. So you don't see that in the ocean, I don't think, but here in the bay, you might encounter that. But yeah, so the wind direction could affect tide.
Which goes along with the shallow areas. There's a lot of narrow channels. One of the problems with marinas, they're on shore. They're in the shallow water or near the shallow water, or you have to go through shallow water.
Basically saying, if you're stopping, you better pay attention to that channel. You cannot go out. The Chesapeake Bay is on average 4 feet deep. I read that somewhere. I don't know if it's still true, but the average depth is 4 feet. Well,
I wonder how would you gauge that? Like, are they counting all the beach areas? Because that just doesn't seem fair.
I think they're counting. I think they're probably getting an average of the total Chesapeake Bay. Probably they have sonar. Yeah, that begins at the high water, or perhaps the average tide, and it gauges the depth at the medium, I forget what it is, low tide marker. And they're saying, okay, on average, it's about 4 feet. Anywhere near the shore is like 1 foot in the Chesapeake. Chesapeake's not deep. Pacific Northwest, you could see a sperm whale swimming 50 feet off the coast of Pebble Beach. Not in the Chesapeake.
Keep an eye not just on the forward buoys, but the ones behind you, because you might be looking, I'm looking at you guys now, and I'm looking, I look like I'm doing good, but the boat is going like this, but I still look like I'm on the correct side of the buoys. If you look,
that's kind of a cool point. You could see how that could go wrong. If you swung all the way to the left and maybe outside of the buoy markers, you might be pointing between them, but that doesn't mean you're between them.
He was warning that if you get outside of the buoys in a lot of places in the Chesapeake, 1 to 2 foot deep. So almost immediately if you mess up that.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Thing is, there are some areas that can be potentially dangerous. And by that I mean the weather turns, the fog rolls in, or the winds roll in. And to give you an example, let's start on the north end of the bay, up by the Susquehanna Channel there.
We're not going to be up there. Should we skip this?
Yeah, he mentions Baltimore next, which I thought
you have the shipping vessels coming and going.
Oh, out of Baltimore.
Yeah.
Further up the Patapsco, just outside of Baltimore, there's a 6-knot zone by Fort McHenry. And
we got yelled at for this, for doing 7 knots in that area.
That was hilarious.
But again, good advice.
Well,
but,
we were also blocking the channel of that gigantic frigate trying to leave.
Even my wife's laughing at us right now. She's like, "What's this bald-headed guy talking about?" She's like, "What the fuck is this guy talking about?" Babe, are you going downstairs?
He's teaching us Russian.
If you're going downstairs for a drink or something, could you hook me up with I don't want to tell my fans the cocktail that I drink.
The same cocktail?
Yes. Okay. It's like three like 2 shots of whiskey, and then it's like the lemonade stuff. Because Uncle Danny's tired of bullshitting.
I thought you were going to have a Moscow Mule tonight.
Dave, I'm going to wait to have the mia until I see your face.
Ooh, you going to bring some copper cups down?
I'm bringing copper cups down. I'm bringing a lot more than that.
In addition, you have all the tugboats coming and going out of that area. Now, most of them have moved out of the inner harbor area.
We've seen the tugboats. We navigated the tugboats.
We got no problem with the tugboats.
How much more tugboating are we going to do? This guy's an old crabby fuck. He doesn't know that.
We've been saved by the tugboats.
We almost called the tugboat over to help us get in like 12 times.
Mm-hmm. That was a really exciting day. We should tell that story because I don't think anybody ever heard. We lost the engine about 8 miles out from the dock, and we, instead of spending a lot of money, we just we sailed all the way into the transient slip, and everyone said it couldn't be done, and especially you and I. Some would call us novice sailors, but we proved that we're not novice sailors. So much had to go right for that to work, and everything did go right. So that's part of what lets us know we were born for this.
Yeah, when we pulled in there, people were like, I remember people being like, there was the dockmaster and the manager of the yacht club were watching us with binoculars as we pulled in, and we leaped off. I had, at the time, I thought we needed 3 or 4 knots of movement for steerage, but they lectured me afterward, and I was annoyed by their lecture because I remember thinking, you never did this before.
Yeah. They didn't want to give us the props. They didn't want to think it was possible for some rookies because they see themselves as the superior sailors, and perhaps they have more experience. But to me, part of sailing is going to be making those judgment calls and taking, like, you know, small risks. We could have destroyed $1 million catamaran, and that was probably the worst that could have happened. It's just like a giant amounts of property damage.
And at the time, we recently learned that we didn't have insurance, right?
Yeah, I guess that makes it a bit worse. Look how sunburnt I am. I'm trying to get baked now so that when we all get together, I'll be more resilient. I can withstand more of the direct abuse. This is what I want to look at. I want to show people what we're up to.
Well, I have I've never done this before, and we're going to leave in 3 days. But so for the first time ever, we're going to map out our approach. And a lot of times, and you mentioned this earlier today, Ben, when I went to lunch with one of my coworkers, we went to Grotto's Pizza in Dover, Delaware. So we were right around here. There's Dover, and okay. So so there's Silver Lake. So somewhere around here off of that main road, we were having grottos. And you called me and you said, Dan, if we go to your dad's house, my dad's over here in Wildwood, we can't get into Wildwood. It's not happening with a 7-foot keel. I'm sorry, 7-foot draft, the 5.5 foot keel. Thank you, baby. I love you. Thank you.
What are we looking at there? Is that,
have you seen my wife tonight?
So that's South Jersey right there.
Yeah. So we have Cape May. Go ahead and cue the song.
Not yet.
Okay.
It's going to be a big surprise.
Yeah. Well, he talks about coming through Ocean City and Sea Isle. Then he goes to Stone Harbor, then he goes into Wildwood, and then he finally gets to Cape May, and by that time he's given his heart away. So Ben said, in a really smart boy opinion, why can't we come out of the Patapsco and head north past Hartmiller Island and up here, and by the way, the middle of the channel, 7 feet. I mean, give me a fucking break. Okay, not the channel, excuse me. We're going to have to go all the way. You want to go to the middle of the channel? We'll go all the way to this side. Okay, we're fine if we stay between the buoys. This is called motoring. Motoring. What's your price? So it's a lot of motoring. Look at the shape of the channel. It gets bigger especially as you come south.
Aren't we fighting like a serious current? I would
sort
think.
of depends on when we leave.
I guess the tide, that's what confuses me. I don't understand tides. It's so amazing to me that it could somehow be going away from the ocean when all the rivers are flowing to the ocean. When all those rivers hit there, I would think there'd be enough momentum from all those rivers to just really just drive all that water towards the ocean.
Baby.
Does anybody understand tides, or is it just something that people measure and then and it's charted, so like they follow the tides? But does anyone understand them, like truly understand tides?
Some more than others.
My understanding level is about About 7%. That's out of 100. When you mention a percentage number, it's out of 100.
I feel like there's two understandings. One is somebody measures the tide on a regular basis and kind of predicts them. And he's like, it doesn't get under 4 feet, the tide. It doesn't get under 2.5 feet. So the biggest tide I've ever recorded, and they kind of chart basic data. And he's a person who has no clue about the phenomenon. But he goes, no, well, I can tell you that it doesn't get below this, and this is the high tide. And so there's that understanding of it. And then there's a more cerebral understanding, and I think that's what you're getting at. I think a lot of people,
who knows how the phenomenon works? Who knows?
Yeah, nobody. Fucking nobody. There's a bunch of lies.
I don't think so. That's what I'm saying.
Bunch of lies.
So carry on. I called you up, and I thought, what if we headed north when we got past I guess it's the Bay Bridge there?
Makes a lot of sense because look, I said, why don't we go south? How much farther are we traveling?
About 300 miles.
About 3. Look at the size of Delaware. Okay.
I actually looked at it up today. So from the bottom tip of Delaware up to like Rehoboth, which is kind of getting close to Wildwood, right? That's only like 20 miles. It's 135 miles. So going up the Delaware, if you're staying in the ocean, headed up that coast, 135 miles until we be branching off to head to like the Jersey shore.
Well, here are my thoughts. We're not a motoring crew, nor do we know anything about motors or engines. If we know less about
motors than we know about tides.
Yeah, I would agree.
I know about 3% of motors.
I'm down for making this decision when we're right here. Right as we kind of cross out into the middle of the Chesapeake, we can say, right by this buoy here, and we're kind of following this out. We could say, you know what, Dave, Ben, do you want to go north or south? At the time, north's going to look quite redeemable because we can tack this way, we can tack our way up. But once we get around these islands and we get by Monk's Island and we get in this channel here, I mean, if you look at these depths, we can do some tacking, but it's going to be a lot of motoring, especially starting right here at the Elk Neck Park by where the entrance of the Sassafras is. We're going to have to come and look how narrow this is. And by law,
it gets really crazy
canal, by law through the canal, which
you have to motor.
You have to motor, of course. It would be insane to try not to motor. Though I did see somebody motoring with their sails up going through there. And people hang this right. They come out and they go, thank God I'm out of that fucking canal. And boats get stuck right, like, because they try to bang a right too quickly. And sometimes they end up around the 1 foot tide. You got to go once you get down the canal, we got to work our way through and continue heading straight out. It's just narrow, but we might be able to regain some tacking once we get toward the mouth of the bay, and we could do some tacking again. But that's the channel to Philadelphia. That's a major shipping channel to Philadelphia. And if you research sailing in the bay, or if you watch a lot of the famous YouTube cruising videos, when they're in that Delaware Bay, they fucking hate it and want to get out. There's something about the tides, the currents, the wind, a square tide or a square something where like the wind's blowing one way, but the tide's going out. So it makes this kind of confusing waterway.
And the idea that we'd have to motor, what is that, like 40 miles of just motoring in a narrow channel?
I would say more. I would say
more.
Yeah, I would say we'd have to start motoring around here because we want to be able to make it through.
Do you have a thing on there where you can draw and it'll tell you the distance?
Yeah. So here we go. So let me play with this. Route. Here, we can let's do an automatic route. And our draft is 7 feet. And our cruising speed, well, let's go with 6. We go 7.5 is our haul speed, but we're going to go 6. And I don't know what my fuel consumption is, but we got that right. We're going to start from Belts Wharf, and it's going to suggest your course. And we're going to end up in Cape May.
I'm curious about this. What a program. You pay for this, don't you?
You can also get it for free, but it includes some updates if you pay for it. I paid for it, but I think right now I paid for it for like a year, but maybe last year. So you can still get on Navionics is kind of a free program. They give you more charts and stuff. So right now it's planning our course.
I'd like it to say no routes available. It's like, how long have you been sailing?
That's the flying, right? Look how if we took to the skies, that would be a quick journey.
What's the distance by the way the bird flies? Does it say?
I would well, I'm in Newark and I go to Baltimore, and that's about 45 miles. So let's just pull that down there and say that's halfway. So I think it's probably 100 miles as the bird flies, as the crow flies, maybe less.
Nice.
No, I would say less. I would say like 80 miles. So this is saying it's going to be 17 hours. That's less than one full day at 6 knots. That's pretty.
Oh, look at the route that it gave us.
Yeah. This is the most efficient route.
So we have to make a big decision about that, because the Chesapeake is obviously way more exciting and probably a lot more learning opportunity. And also we have the advantage with the Chesapeake that if for some reason the motor does fail, as you've been trying to curse with your...
I've been trying to wish that upon us. Yeah.
So if it did fail when we're in the canal, we'd be in big trouble.
Well, there's little to no sailing to be done in this scenario. We're going to motor out here past Fort McHenry under the bridge, the 695 bridge. And then when we head north, we can motor sail for like, 13, 14 miles. And then the motor comes on and we're motoring, especially, definitely when we get up here, we have to start motoring. So that's like 30 miles of, 20 miles of motoring to get to the Delaware. You can't sail once you get to the Delaware right here. We can't really start sailing with any real tacking until we enter this part. So it's just limited, and nobody wants to swim in the Delaware Bay. It's known as it's a disgusting bay. And this one has us kind of going over there by Sunset Beach. I guess we're anchoring, and I'm going to offer something else. Dave, that is kind of compelling and worth looking at. 17?
I think so, only because we can do it so quick, and then we have days to go up and down the coast, the shore there.
If we took Pilgrim with the brand new Honda outboard, and we might go this direction because it's a smaller vessel. We can reach further. We can move closer towards the edges of the land with, tacking wise, and we could do more sailing if we took Pilgrim. If we went this route, we should take Pilgrim.
Can you switch it to the other route? Let's see what they estimate the time will be.
It's not that easy, but I'm going to show you, but we're going to do it. So we're going to go chart viewer. I'm going to route. We're going to say manual. All right. So it says tap the map to add waypoints. So we all know we're coming out of this area. That's the inner harbor. This is Fort McHenry. So we're coming out of here. And I'm just going to kind of tap as we go.
That's where we're going to bang a hard Ralph. That's a right. That's a sailor talk for a right. They call it a Ralph. And a left is a Louis. If you don't have any friends that are sailors, you wouldn't know this kind of lingo.
Uh-huh. And here we don't have to really, it's starting to open up, right? So we don't have to, what is it doing this for? So it does give you a little problem. So here's the waypoint. Here's my next waypoint.
Does it want you to mark them closer? No, there we go.
So
there's a lot of places that you could potentially get lost too. I'm noticing with the Chesapeake, it's much bigger than I had thought in my little head for some reason. There's plenty of ways to get lost, plenty of ways to make a wrong turn and end up, like 30 miles in the wrong direction. If you were just using the compass, you could get into some of those. I guess.
What are we looking at?
Are those rivers?
So I just did a very basic sort of movement. I came out wide right here, thinking if we called a, attack, it's 2 days. What we have is 1 day. I'm sorry. Yeah. 1 day and 23 hours. That's cruising.
Dude, that's not bad.
Yeah. But that says that we're always doing 6 knots, and look, are we, it's going to be 2 days. It's going to be two. So one, actually, Dave, I would say if we went up in this direction with the motor on and stuff, because it's saying we're doing this at 6 knots. There's no tacking. Look how straight these lines are. That's a motoring line. Really, we're going to be heading over here to Bloodsworth Isle.
You think it's going to be that crazy, do you?
And then we're going to shoot over here towards Mob Neck.
You think it's going to be that much tacking?
It's going to be
You're saying triple that number. You're saying it's going to take 6 days to get there.
I'm saying that it says 2 days. I'm going to say this, if we're really under sail, is going to be more like 3.5 days, 4 days. And this way, we're forced to go under motar, and that's going to be more like 2.5 days. So it's either 2.5 days.
Well, how about we do this? How about we head south? We get the full experience of the Chesapeake. We get the sails out. We really do the thing right. And then we determine if we want to take the shortcut back, because we're only 17, and that's only like 20 gallons of diesel. If we decide we want to take the cop out, I think we should definitely go both ways anyway. I think we should do the full circle. Get the whole experience.
That would be really cool. Really,
depending on
cool.
which way we want to do it, we could start going north and we could come back from the Chesapeake, or we could go down the Chesapeake. Maybe when we get closer to the day, we'll look at the magical tides and the wind and the weathers.
I just think, look at all this extra time at sea we would have. I mean, this is just nothing but fun.
That's what we want right there. We want to be jumping off that boat. We want to be catching fish, cleaning.
In the fish haven.
Mm-hmm. We need a lot of ocean time. Can you also bring up one of your handy little weather, wind forecast type things?
Yeah, a good one is windy.
Will it take us out all the way till next week?
It will, but it's pushing it in terms of the weather.
Let's get an idea of it would be next Thursday evening we would set sail. So maybe we would do 6 hours the first night until we get tired, and then take it easy. So see what it's predicting around Baltimore.
This is right now. If you want to jump ahead into a Wednesday or Thursday of next week at, what am I looking at? 12 noon. Am I looking at 12 noon? That's halfway through the day, right? 11 a.m. Yeah. Ooh, it's a cold. It's not cold. I'm saying it's not blowing. Let's move forward. Not blowing. Ooh, okay. There's some movement there. Now it's pushing us toward the end of Thursday. Around 9 p.m. on Thursday, there's a light push, a green push, a 10 knot push between 5 and 10 knots, closer to 5 north. So that might convince us to start north. Maybe we do go north.
So it's working against us if we were to go south that evening. So far. Now
it's Friday at 2 a.m. and it's pushing northeast. That's a good place for it to push. Look how there's no wind once we get to the area where we have to motor anyway.
It's taking us there.
Say we motor all night and it takes us to Friday. Friday, the wind's starting to change. It starts going south. It is starting to go south now. So by Friday the 24th, we are getting 10 knots heading southeast.
So it sounds like if the weather stays how this is, then God has directed us to take that route the way there.
Let's call it the northerly passage.
The northerly passage for the way there. And then once we get there, we'll have so much more time to just kind of explore and just see how we're feeling, see what everything is looking like.
Well, do you know how much fun it would be though? Like here we are at the end of Friday. So 2 days of travel, we might be down here if we took the other route. Once we kind of come through, remember as a sailor, we can go 15 degrees into the wind. So even if the wind's blowing at us, we can still make good headway. But with that said, we could have the glory of being able to be going in a northwesterly wind on a Friday morning, fucking hightailing it up the coast, the saltwater coast, where it's leading us directly into Wildwood.
Yeah, but we're not going to be down to the mouth of the Chesapeake by Friday.
No, but we are going to be in Tangier Island. And we can remember, even though it's blowing at us, we can sail just as quickly against it, almost as quickly. I don't know if we can. Friday, I'm going to talk to some mechanics about, can they come on and do a quick oil and do a quick oil filter and do some basic maintenance. And if we can get that, I'm down for the 2.5 day Baltimore to Newark to Cape May cruise. But if we're under sail, we almost have no choice because there's no sailing north of the Sassafras. I'm sorry. There's no sailing going on here. All the way across, there's no sailing here. No sailing past, what island is this? Okay. And nope, I'm sorry. No sailing. The shipping lanes are crazy. Right around here. Okay. We can start sailing again. So that's a lot of motoring, but it does seem to be a lot closer. I think it depends on what boat we use almost. If we're using the big boat, we go south. If we're using the smaller boat, we go north.
I think we should plan on using the big boat because it's such a superior boat.
Well, we're going to be able to sail twice. From Baltimore, we're going to 8 hours from Baltimore. We're going to get up here to the Sassafras. Sassafras is where we have to start the engine because there's nothing much we can do here tack wise with how shallow it is. We kind of have to be on the straight and narrow. Straight and narrow. We could stop here, see my wife, see your wife. And then here we are in the Chesapeake and Delaware. It's still straight and narrow. I'm just saying there's a lot of motoring that has to take place before we get to here where we go, we're there. You know, fire up the the thrusters. We're there and it's going to be fun. But by the way, there's no ocean time. In that direction, there's nothing ocean. It's dirty. You know, a lot of it's river water and brackish water.
Well, why couldn't we head north to like Stone Harbor?
We could. Stone Harbor is not a safe area to dock because you'll see here in the charts that there's not enough room for us, not enough room for something that deep. So
well, no, I'm saying we don't touch the shore. We stay in the ocean.
I'm cool with that. We don't. Here's Avalon. I'm cool with that. It's just we don't have a chain on our anchor. Like we're ill prepared, and it's important that everybody knows that we're ill prepared.
Well, so we'll use one of the extra lines to tie down the anchor.
Well, the chain helps it, I think, to set like in a fashion. But if you reflect back on what people had, I guess, as sailboats were blossoming in history, they might not have had all the access to all the materials we have. They probably would do just fine with some rope So let's and their boats were much heavier at times.
Remember your big front anchor only had a chain for like 2 feet that was connected to a thick rope.
Yeah, that's all. I don't think we need a lot of chain. I mean, we could do the chain. I'd be happy if we did the chain. We need to have one thing be good, whether it's the anchor or the engine. They're both safety measures. They're both safety measures. So something has to be. So we can't have an engine that fails and an anchor that fails. One of these things we have to trust.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And trusting both would be amazing. But we can get it. We can get a chain. We can get the anchor and the chain, and that's a less expensive route.
I can even ask for a transom connector for the boat for Laura. You know, we can have a backup Laura motor if we can get one long enough and low enough. We could put that Honda outboard perhaps on Laura. You know, if we can get one, it's all it is like a little crane. It's kind of like this. It sits down in the water. You get a long ass one, and maybe just the top of the power thing is exposed from the water. And you just, you know, you can actually turn it and lock it. So I could say, okay, we're doing 3 knots. And I'm leaning off the back of the boat, like adjusting that. But it could be a good backup, man. I'm not in love with our Westerbeek condition.
I wish you were, because I am. So let that be noted. I think this thing is I think it's gonna pull it off so hard. You're gonna fall so in love with that thing. You've had a love-hate with it. The internet says that you're wrong. It says it should be only a love relationship. By the end of this trip, you were going to be a Westerbeek poster boy. You're going to put Westerbeek stickers on your Volvo.
My Volvo? My Volvo.
Your Volkswagen. My baby is squealing. My poor mother's out there watching her while the others are putt-putt golfing. And
no way.
Yeah, and she is screaming so loud. I'm gonna have to
squealing and wheeling. All right, Dave.
I'll be back for you.
All right, I'll see you in a little bit.
God bless.
God bless.